Saba kayo music. No, copyright na.
Lay down on the ground where he could watch the rest of the students practice. Suddenly, Lily walked up to him holding 2 bottles of water. She smiled and offered one to Kevin. "Sweetie, do you want some water?" Kevin nodded and returned her smile. He popped Lily's bottle open and handed it back to her. Lily sat down right next to Kevin and put her head on his shoulder. A few of the men in the class who were interested in Lily were very jealous of Kevin when they saw this. "Hey, isn't that Lily? Who's that guy she's sitting with?" one of them asked. "You don't know who that is? I thought everyone had heard of him. He's Lily's trashy husband," another student explained to him. "Didn't you say their marriage was on the rocks? They definitely aren't acting like it," he replied. Kevin could hear their discussions and he started to smile. He'd also felt that Lily had become more and more affectionate lately. Just then, another beautiful woman walked over to Kevin. Phoebe Anderson handed Kevin a bottle of water and gave him a pleasant smile. "You must be thirsty, Kevin," she remarked as she looked him in the eyes and completely ignored Lily. "I'm very flattered, Miss Anderson," Kevin teased her. "Don't forget that I still owe you a meal. When are you free?" she asked him. She clearly remembered that their dinner had been interrupted by Officer Emmett. Phoebe still hadn't properly thanked him for the Dream Lover necklace. Whenever Phoebe had nothing to do, she would start thinking about Kevin. That's why she'd brought along an antique Italian hairpin with her, so she'd have an excuse to spend some time with him. "I've got tons of free time. Just say when," Kevin answered playfully. "We can figure that out later. But first, I wonder if you can take a look at this Italian hairpin," Phoebe asked as she handed it to Kevin. She could feel Lily's eyes on her, but Phoebe was smart. She knew that she needed a good excuse to spend some time with Kevin, and her plan seemed to work. When Lily saw that Phoebe had an actual business-related question for Kevin, she stopped giving her the evil eye, but she still kept a watchful eye on the two of them. "That's a very nice piece," Kevin said as he turned the hairpin over in his hand. "It's genuine onyx and gold. The cameo looks like a member of the Italian royal family. My conservative estimate is $90,000. Their conversation started to draw some stares from the other students who were taking their break. Why was this loser so popular? If Lily and Kevin had such a great thing going, what was Phoebe Anderson trying to do? They just couldn't figure it out. Then one of the rich kids walked over and said very loudly, "You'd better not get involved with Kevin. Did you know he stole Penny Sutherland's phone at the Whistler Hotel last night? He was exposed in front of the entire class. I wouldn't let him near any of your expensive antiques." "You must be joking," Phoebe laughed. Then she added very seriously, "He's our antique shop's chief appraiser." The man's jaw dropped when she said that. He turned around and walked away without saying another word. The cameo has incredible detail, but I think that the pin itself was probably repaired in the late 1700s, Kevin added thoughtfully. "Wow, you really know your stuff. Even my father didn't know that much about it, but you could tell all that with just a glance?" Phoebe gushed. Her eyes were almost shining with admiration. "I never knew my husband was so skilled," Lily commented. She emphasized the word husband to send a message to Phoebe. Phoebe felt some disappointment when she heard Lily say that. "I wish I'd met Kevin first," Phoebe thought to herself. Kevin sensed the tension. Just as he was about to say something to change the subject, he heard a firm voice telling him to have some more water. It sounded more like a command than a friendly request. The three of them turned around at the same time to see who it was. Kevin gulped nervously when he saw Penny standing there looking down at him. The students who had been watching Kevin so enviously for the past few minutes couldn't take it anymore. "What the hell is this? Now Penny's giving Kevin water too?" one of them commented. "What's he got that I don't?" another one said. They had no idea what these three women saw in the guy. It was bad enough that Lily and Phoebe were fawning over Kevin, but now Penny was joining in. "What's this about, Penny?" Kevin asked her inquisitively. He couldn't figure out what she wanted from him. "I just wanted to say that I was wrong about you, Kevin. Take this bottle of water as a peace offering," Penny said coolly. No one knew just how conflicted Penny was feeling as she did this. She was from a very important family and was usually very reserved. It was a big deal for her to offer something to a man that lots of people in the school thought was such a loser. But she also knew that what had happened that morning had been her fault. She'd treated Kevin like a thief and almost had him thrown out of the school when he'd only been trying to help her. On top of that, when Penny passed that note to Kevin and he didn't reply, she couldn't think of any other way to make it up to him. "Don't worry about it, Penny. It was a simple misunderstanding," Kevin said graciously. He could feel all the eyes on him, and it didn't feel too good. "I always try to deal with people fairly," she explained. "How about if I treat you to dinner sometime?" The more nonchalant Kevin acted, the more Penny felt sorry for him. She didn't say it very loud, but everyone heard her invitation very clearly. The guys who had a crush on Penny just couldn't stand it. What the heck did she see in him? Kevin was starting to make a lot of enemies in his class without even trying. Lily and Phoebe were also a little wary of her. Was Penny an old friend of Kevin's? Why was she inviting him to dinner? Phoebe was starting to feel very uneasy. She was already in competition with Lily, and now there was someone new she had to deal with. But Lily was getting even more nervous. She knew exactly who Penny was. She was from the most important family in the city, and she was also very attractive. Lily was afraid that Penny might try to steal Kevin from her. Right then, Lily promised herself not to let anyone take her husband away from her, and it was up to her to do something about it. Right after Kevin bought the Starry Sky ring for Lily, he got a call from Phoebe. She wanted him to meet her right away at an antique store on Belmont Avenue. It sounded very urgent. Kevin had an odd but very strong feeling that the Night King wanted him to go there. "Phoebe asked you to help her?" Lily didn't seem very pleased with the idea. She could easily understand the way Phoebe looked at Kevin. After all, he was very handsome. But that After kicking Chase Rogers out of class for being disruptive, Professor Murdoch told the students that she was aware of the fight that had just broken out on campus. Kevin hoped she wasn't going to notice him, but Dalton didn't seem very worried. Professor Murdoch fixed her eyes on Kevin and Dalton. "To gamble again?" Lily asked her sharply. "I don't mean to upset you, but we're kind of short on cash. Can you try not to gamble so much?" Lily's request made Dorothy feel really uncomfortable. After all, the money they'd been spending had come from her daughter's show. She knew Lily was right about this and nodded her head in agreement as she replied, "I know, but I was invited by one of my friends, and if I don't go, everyone will start to gossip." Just when Lily was about to try and convince her mother not to go out, the doorbell rang. "I wonder if that's Kevin," Lily exclaimed as her face lit up. She gave up on trying to persuade her mother to stay home and got up to answer the door. But when she opened the door, Lily was taken aback. Grandma Jones was standing there, supported by Jason. "What are you guys doing here?" Lily thought to herself. Ever since Lily had been cheated out of her shares and driven out of the Jones family, she hadn't seen any of her relatives. The last thing Lily expected was to be visited by Grandma Jones herself. "What's wrong? Aren't I welcome in your home?" Grandma said with a smile. But she couldn't hide her disappointment and worry. "Of course you're welcome. Please, come in and have a seat." Lily politely invited her grandmother into her living room. "This place really isn't bad. I expected as much from Salix Leaf Development," Grandma Jones commented as she looked around the room. I didn't expect you to be able to buy such a nice home after leaving the family. Did you find yourself a rich man to take care of you? Jason asked mockingly. If you don't want to stay, you know where the door is. I invited Grandma to come in, not you, Lily retorted. Jason was absolutely livid when she said that. That's enough, Jason. Stop talking. I believe Lily earned her money on her own, Grandma Jones warned him. It was the first time she'd ever defended Lily in her whole life. Well, will wonders never cease, Dorothy commented as she looked out the window. She was also aware that Grandma Jones was being uncharacteristically nice to Lily. Grandma Jones and Jason did their best not to react to Dorothy's wisecrack. They had no choice but to bite their tongues. For some reason, the Jones family had suffered one setback after another in their business. In fact, their funding had almost completely dried up until just a couple of days ago, when it had made a slight rebound. If it happened again, the Jones family would go bankrupt in less than 3 days. But the strange thing was that Grandma was no longer embarrassed to go around the city asking for help. Some people politely rebuffed her. Others took the opportunity to tell her what they really thought, essentially kicking her while she was down. Jason was certain that Lily was rolling in money because of her online show. If they could get her to help them, their problems would be solved. That was why the two of them came over to visit her. Did something happen to you, Grandma? Lily decided not to beat around the bush. Knowing how much danger her family was in, Grandma Jones swallowed her pride and got straight to the point. Lily, I know that Jason and I have caused you a lot of pain. Please accept my sincere apologies for that. But I'm here on behalf of the entire family to ask for your help. As a member of the Jones family, you can't let us get wiped out. Oh, so now that you need help, we're back in the family? Dorothy shouted as she ran over to them. You didn't seem to care about our name when you kicked us out. Grandma Jones and Jason didn't reply. Mom, please don't say anything else, Lily begged her mother. Why shouldn't I say something? Didn't it bother you how the family treated the two of us? Dorothy growled. She was getting angrier and angrier as she spoke. What's past is past, Lily sighed. Of course, she still felt hurt by what Grandma Jones had done, but she still treated her with respect. How can I help the family, Grandma? Lily asked quietly. Jason and Grandma Jones both smiled broadly. Well, how much money do you have right now? We'll need you to transfer all of it to the family. We'll cover the rest, Grandma Jones instructed her. That's the only way we'll be able to overcome this crisis. If you think that's an unreasonable request, we can give you some of the Jones Corporation shares, Jason offered. But Lily didn't answer Grandma Jones's question right away. She remained silent while she thought about the offer. Although Grandma Jones's tone was very gentle, she never said she would return the money to Lily. And even though Lily had been a high-ranking member of the family, they booted her out anyway. So there were no guarantees that this deal wouldn't turn out the same way for her. And the shares that Jason was talking about were meaningless too. After all, he and Grandma Jones had already cheated Lily out of her controlling interest in the family's company. You've really got some nerve saying that, Dorothy scoffed as she rolled her eyes at Grandma Jones. In the past, Dorothy had always been polite to Grandma Jones, but now that Lily was earning enough to cover their basic needs, she didn't care what she said to her. That's enough, Mom. Let's let bygones be bygones, Lily said gently. Then she turned to her grandmother and reassured her. I promise to help the family. Tomorrow I'll arrange for the transfer of funds. The main reason Lily had decided to do this was actually her own mother. She still had about $6 million left in the bank. If she didn't withdraw, Dorothy would probably lose it anyway. But Lily had definitely learned her lesson, so she stipulated that the Jones family would have to give her 40% of their shares. I knew we could count on you, Grandma Jones said happily. She didn't even bother to argue about the terms because she knew that the Jones family shares had hardly any value right now. Even if she gave Lily 80% of their shares, they would barely be worth about $2 million. So it's a deal, Grandma. Have the family's lawyer draw up the documents when you get back to the mansion, Lily said calmly. At least she'd have some shares, whatever they were worth, and Dorothy wouldn't gamble away what was left in her bank account. But it went without saying that she was going to be a lot more wary of Jason this time around. Okay, I'll go back this afternoon and get everything ready. Grandma Jones hesitated for a moment and then she added, We're having a big dinner tomorrow. You and your mother should join us. When everyone sees you, they'll know that you're part of the family again. I won't be able to make it, Grandma. I'm taking classes at the School for the Healing Arts, and I don't know if I'll have any free time, Lily replied. And right now I'm meeting some friends at that new outdoor mall off of Halsted Street, so I have to get going.
Riyadh? Riyadh.
Understand. Jason and I have to leave too. Have a good time with your friends, Grandma Jones answered very politely as she stood up and headed for the door. She didn't complain about Lily's refusal. After all, she'd gotten what she came for. A few minutes later, Lily and Dorothy left. Kevin heard the door close and walked over to the top of the staircase. He'd spent the night reading and then gotten some sleep, so he was feeling refreshed. He'd actually heard the entire conversation with Grandma Jones, but decided not to show himself. I can't believe that Lily went along with that. Kevin sighed helplessly. Then he took out his phone and called Miss Wilson. How may I help you, sir? Miss Wilson asked him. Let's back off on the pressure we've been putting on the Jones family for now, but don't give them too much wiggle room. I'll leave the details up to you, Kevin instructed her. I'll take care of it, Mr. Williams, Miss Wilson promised. Kevin hung up the phone and looked outside. He decided that the weather was pretty good, so he changed his clothes and went out for a walk. The new mall of Halsted Street had been built with Tyler Dawn's help when he arrived in Chicago. It had turned out to be a very popular shopping area, even in Chicago's harsh winters. Under Tyler's direction, the KWTD Corporation had used its influence to attract a lot of high-end stores. There were also dozens of restaurants and food courts with a wide variety of options. People flocked to the neighborhood as an alternative to driving out to the suburbs to visit one of the older malls. Tyler Dawn really came up with a great idea, Kevin thought to himself. Then he was distracted by his phone, which started to vibrate like crazy. He was being bombarded with texts. Kevin clicked on the first one and was surprised to see that it was from his friend Cook. He was wondering how his friend was doing. There was also a message from Rachel and another one from Gwen Archer. She was checking to see if Kevin was still interested in teaching her. The most interesting text, though, was from Tyler Dawn, who was letting Kevin know that he'd arranged with all the stores in the mall to cover his expenses. He told Kevin, "If you want anything at all, just go in and ask for it. Let me know when you're going to the mall and I'll fly you down there myself." The mall was really crowded, and Kevin thought to himself, maybe a plane would be handy with this many people around. In fact, there were so many people shopping and just strolling around that Kevin had realized he had no chance of finding Lily. It would be faster to just give her a call. When Lily's phone rang, she and Rachel were right in the middle of the mall. She was holding a bunch of bags in one hand and a veggie wrap in the other. She adjusted her bags and somehow managed to answer her phone. She was so excited to see that it was Kevin that she started grinning from ear to ear. "Are you back from campus, Kevin?" "Yes, I am. Where are you right now?" Kevin asked her. "We're in the middle of that new outdoor mall along Halsted," Lily answered with a smile. "Stay right where you are. Don't move an inch. I'm right by the entrance and I'm heading your way," Kevin told her. He hung up and started making his way through the crowd as he admired the scenery. Kevin wasn't aware of it, but at that very moment, Officer Emmett was walking through the same crowd. A man walked up to her and asked her if she wanted to come over to his kiosk. "Would you like to have your palm read, ma'am?" "I'm not interested," she replied bluntly. Officer Emmett had more important things to do that day. Officer Emmett was walking through the crowds at the new mall on Halstead Street when a man in a long purple robe that looked like a Halloween costume invited her to have her palm read at his kiosk. The sign over his table read, Professor Futurioso. "Sorry, I'm not interested." Officer Emmett smiled and shook her head. She'd never bought into any of that stuff. "Why don't you just give me a few minutes of your time? I'll bet you really want to believe, Kelly," the man said cryptically as he stroked his goatee. "How did you know my first name is Kelly?" she asked in surprise. "I can see far into the past and even farther into the future. Knowing your name is really quite simple," he replied smugly. "That's pretty impressive," Sherwin Blair said in surprise. "Please read my fiancé's palm for her. I'll pay you whatever you want." "You've misunderstood my intentions. Palm reading has everything to do with fate, not money," he explained to Blair. Then he rubbed his beard again and continued. "Since fate has brought us together in this huge crowd, maybe we were meant to meet. I won't charge you anything for this reading." "That's very generous of you," Blair exclaimed loudly, instantly drawing the attention of the people around them. "Could you please tell me your date of birth?" the man asked Officer Emmett. "January 14th, 1992, she answered excitedly. She really didn't have that much going on today, so she might as well have a little fun. They walked over to his kiosk and Officer Emmett sat down across from Professor Futurioso. He took her hand and looked at it thoughtfully before commenting. "I see that you're very powerful and have an impressive heart line." Then he paused and added, "But I'd like to try something else to give you more specific advice." Then he pulled a deck of tarot cards out of his puffy sleeve. Officer Emmett raised an eyebrow, but let him continue. He drew the cards and placed them on the little table between them. "I see here that your career isn't going as well as you hoped, but you have someone very generous in your life," he began. Then he put a tower card on the table and said, "But something has brought disaster into your life." The next card he drew was the Fool, and he commented, "There's another relationship in your life that you need to change because it's coming to an end." Strangely, the face on the character looked a little bit like Kevin, but Officer Emmett put that down to coincidence. She was stunned by his comments, but didn't notice when Professor Futurioso looked over at Blair after he finished speaking. Then he continued, "It looks like you need to make an immediate change so that your life and career can get back on track." "Then what should I do?" Officer Emmett wondered. In spite of her skepticism, she was starting to believe him. It was true that she'd had a lot of setbacks at work, especially her failure to make any progress with the Myriads or the Alliance. This guy was accurate so far. Maybe he could suggest a solution for her.
Where's the batatay?
"It's very simple. If you want to be happy, you need to make a leap of faith right away and cut your ties with any bad influences in your life," he told her with a smile before adding, "And there's no time like the present." She looked at him in shock and understood right away what he was talking about. Then the man nodded and turned to look at Blair. "It seems to me that this is the man who will bring you that happiness. You're destined to be together." When she heard this, Officer Emmett started to feel a little emotional. Even though she and Blair had been engaged for a while now, she'd been reluctant to set a date. Blair thought that the moment was right to make his move. He got down on one knee and pulled out a small velvet jewelry box. "Kelly, we've been together for such a long time. Will you marry me?" Blair asked her so loudly that everyone around them started to cheer. The bystanders waited impatiently to hear Officer Emmett's response. "You have to say yes, Kelly. I know that you're a match made in heaven.